Hello everyone, my name is Manthan Patel and I'm from Informatica GCS support. And in today's session, we are gonna learn about how we can integrate cloud data access management with cloud data integration to, mask or protect the data and deliver it safely with the users. Following are the agendas for today's session. Firstly, we'll know about what is cloud data access management, followed by the use case that we'll be taking in this session. Then we'll discuss about what are the permissions that user needs to configure this cloud data access management policies in your org. Uh, Going further, we'll be creating few data filters. I'll be discussing more on this, how we can create data filter, what is data filter in detail when we go to the specific slide. After that, we'll discuss on what is data de-identification policies and how we can create them, followed by the demo and the summary. So let's move ahead with the first topic on what is cloud data access management. So cloud data access management is used to develop policies within the org that can be applied within the data operations through data integration, which we are going to take in today's session. Then it can be also used as a self-service access through cloud data marketplace, or even we can push down to cloud data platforms to protect and deliver safe data that is fit for use by easily constructing policies in your cloud data governance and catalog that can leverage metadata conditions for transforming and delivering data. Okay, so this is the use case that we are going to take into this session. So we'll be taking this table for an example, and in today's session, the use case is whenever user requests for data, they should not see any records which are outside of location US. So basically, we'll be masking row number 3, 4, 5, and 6, as well as we'll be also masking the email ID. So we'll be considering email ID as a PII information, and we'll construct few policies and rules to mask the email ID so that whenever user request for the data and view that data, they won't be able to see the email ID of the users, as well as they won't see the records which are not belonging to the location US. So in this slide, we'll discuss about what are the permissions that are required. So first, user needs create and update permissions on data access assets, and this can be done from metadata command center through user role policies. And there are few secure agent configurations that are required to work with the cloud data access management. I'll show more of that in the demo. So let's move ahead. First is to create the data filter. So creating a data filter is used to provide or deny access to rows of the data. So let's take this as an example. So in this screenshot, we can see that we have created a data filter where we are specifying that wherever the class is employee location and string is not any of US, then just deny access to this records. So basically what we are trying to say is wherever the location is non-US, just protect the data. So don't give access to the users to that data. And we are also specifying a condition that when this rule should be triggered. So it should be triggered whenever user request for the data with the usage context of analysis. Only then this rule will be triggered and the non-US location records will be protected. Next would be to create the data de-identification policy. So data de-identification techniques are behaviors for data access management to apply to a field in a data set to de-identify it while still preserving the data utility. So let me give you an example about it. So let's say there is PII information in your one of the columns. So for in today's session, which is email ID. So with this data de-identification utility, we'll be masking the email ID. So we'll just mask it as xxx@informatica.com. So it won't be visible to the users. So for that, we can define a data protections within the data de-identification policy to protect that data. So in that data protection rules will be mentioning that whenever there is an email ID, with what value we should be switching it or replacing it. So there are three steps to creating data identification policy. First, we need to create a data protection rule. Then we need to create a precedence tier, and third will be creating a data de-identification policy by using this data protection rule that we create. Okay, let's move. So in this slide, we'll know about what is data protection rule. So a data protection technique is used to specify the level of masking that needs to be done on the sensitive data. So in today's example, what I've done is, so wherever there is email ID, or in today's example, I'm showing email ID. So wherever there is email ID, it needs to be replaced with the constant value called as xxx@gmail.com. So this is, I'm replacing it with a constant value so that all the rows of that email ID column will be replaced with xxx@gmail.com. So in a way, we are masking the actual PII information. And following are the techniques that are available to mask the data. First is to replace a string with a constant value. That's what I'm doing as today's example. Uh, other options that are available is generalize date, hashing, redirect with null, retain, substitute a value, tokenize, or truncate strings. R&D might come up with more techniques in future, but for now, these are the techniques that they have provided. After that, we'll create a precedence tier. So precedence tiers are order grouping of data de-identification policies that determine the priority and sequence of evaluating data de-identification policies and applying data protection rules. So in a way, when there are more than one data protection rules or data identification policies, uh, by precedence tiers, we can specify that what data de-identification policy should be executed first, and what should be the order of execution of those data de-identification policy. So that's what can be done with the precedence tiers. So once this precedence tier and the protection rule is created, we can go ahead and create the data de-identification policy. So let's move ahead. Yeah. So once those two steps are done, we can create a data de-identification policy by matching the column name to the protection rule, which will be correlating with that. So in today's example, I'm matching that whenever the column name is email ID, protect that specific column with the protection rule that we have created earlier, that substituting its value with xxx@gmail.com. So that's what we need to do if by creating the data de-identification policy. It would be like one-to-one match for the columns to the protection rules. And after doing that, we need to specify the condition on which it should trigger this specific policy. So here, as in the example, I have provided three conditions. First, whichever user is requesting for the data is either a part of user group CDG, or user who is requesting the data with the context of analysis, or the data identity classification is employee. That means the table is tagged to data classification named employee. In these three cases, this specific rule will be triggered. Yeah. So once all those things are done, creating the protection rule, creating the data rule, and creating de-identification policy, we are good with the data access management part. Then what user needs to do is this CDAM policies can be used in CDI mapping to mask the data as well as write it to a specific target. So in today's example, I have created a simple mapping where I'm taking the data from Snowflake source and writing it to a flat file, a CSV file. And I'm introducing a data access policy transformation with the usage context of analysis, which we have used while creating the policies. So that our usage context is analysis. That's when the policies will be triggered. And when I run this, it will write the data to a flat CSV file. Okay, this is the result. And in this screenshots, we can see before how was our data. So we had email ID which was unmasked, as well as the location was US, Canada, India, and all. And in this today's session, our use case was to mask all the data which is not belonging to the location US, as well as mask the email ID. So if you check the results, wherever the location is non-US, the user is not able to see those records, as well as the email ID has been masked with xxx@gmail.com. So let's move ahead. Yeah, I'll show you more things in the demo. Okay, I have logged into data governance and catalog. Now, first step would be to configure the data filter. So data filter is nothing but to specify what are all the records that will be visible to the users. So we'll go to data filter. We will go to this plus symbol to create a new rule. I have already one filter created, so I'll go to this specific filter. Once the filter is created, we have to specify that uh, during what conditions should this data filter be triggered. So for example, I have to created two conditions. First is whenever the user is requesting for the data with the usage context of analysis, and the other is whenever the table is tied to the classification with the name employee. In those two cases, the specific data filter should be triggered. And what exactly this data filter should do, that we can specify in the rules. So again, I have put the condition as analysis. So whenever user requests the data with the context of analysis, uh, and this class is nothing but the classification which is tagged to the column. So let's say if a column is tagged with this specific classification, employee location, and it contains any of the records which is not US, then mask all those data. So if let's take an example that table has a location US, Canada, and India. With this rule, it will mask all the records wherever the location is India and Canada, basically not US. So that was the first use case that we wanted to cover, and we can do it using data filter. So once the data filter is created, we can go to data de-identification, which we will use to mask the email ID, which was the purpose of today's lab exercise. So first step would be to create a data protection. I have already have one data protection created. We'll go to this data protection, and here we have to specify the technique, that what kind of masking that we want for the email ID. So as mentioned in the PPT, that we are replacing all the data of the column email with a constant value called as xxx@gmail.com, and we can save the specific data protection rule. Then it will come to creating the precedence tier. So precedence tier is nothing but specifying the order of execution of data de-identification policy. So as I already have only have one data de-identification policy, I have created only one precedence tier. We can create n number of precedence tier, and we can give the rank to those tiers. And while you create the data de-identification policy, we have to specify the precedence tiers, and based on the rank of the tier, the execution will be decided, and it will be executed in its order. So once the data protection as well as precedence tier is created, we can go to data de-identification and create policy. And while creating the policy, first step would be to specify that on what condition this specific policy should be triggered. So in today's example, I have created that this mask email data de-identification policy should be triggered when the user requests for data with the context of analysis, or if the user is part of user group CDG. In those two conditions, it should be triggered. And in the rules, we'll specify that what kind of protection it should do. So in the rule, I have specified that wherever the column name is employee underscore email, protect that specific column with the protection rule that I have created, which is protection underscore email, where we are masking the data with a constant value xxx@gmail.com. So once this is done, we are all set with creating policies for data governance and catalog. Now we'll go to data integration and create a mapping by using these policies. Okay, now we are here in the data integration, and I have created a simple mapping where I'm taking the data from Snowflake, putting an access policy, and writing the data after applying the access policy to that, and writing it to a flat file, a CSV file. So in the source, we can specify what is the connection that you have created in the administrator, what is the table name on which you want to apply those access policies. Then we need to create a access policy. Here in the access policy, we can specify what is the current user that is trying to execute this policy, what is the usage context. Here I have selected analysis because in the condition that we used to create the policy, we have mentioned that the policy should be only triggered if the usage context is analysis. That's why I'm using analysis just for the demo purpose. Data asset, you can select the table name on which you want the policies to be applied. And consistency seed, you can click on generate. It will create a unique consistency seed for this specific policy. Now to configure the target, for this demo, I'm selecting a flat file connection and writing the data to a CSV file. And in the field mapping, we can do one-to-one map of the columns. And once this is done, you can save the mapping and run it. Yeah, I have logged into the Linux server where where, uh, now I have logged into the Linux server which I've used in the flat file target connection, and this is the file. You can see that the non-US records are masked, and the email ID has been also masked with xxx@gmail.com. So this is how the resultant file looks like. So yeah, uh, that's it for the demo. Here is the summary of to this session. I have included all the links to all the different topics that we covered today, starting from permissions required, what is CDAM, how to create the data filters, how to create data de-identification policy, data protection policy, and what is precedence styles. I've included documentation links for all of them. Please feel free to review those. Yeah, and that's it for today's session. Thank you, everyone.